Hey there, Jen here. Today is day 2 of our mobility video series. Today is going to be nice, short, and sweet. I'm going to give you just a few stretches, mobility exercises designed to decrease chronic pain and to just help you feel really good, whether you're doing this video at the beginning of the day or the end of the day. Now, you don't really need any equipment here. Shoes are optional. I would suggest having water close by, but let's dive in. All right, so for today, we are going to start on the ground. So get yourself into a seated position. One leg is going to be out straight, the other leg tucked in. We want to make sure that with the toe that is extended, that we're not leaning it in, but we either have it neutral or leaning slightly out, splayed slightly out. Now, what I want you to do is square yourself to the front so that you're fairly straight with your hips towards that extended leg. Nice and slow, we are going to come to an extended position, so chest nice and upright, hands are straight, leaning forward ever so slightly. Now keep in mind the movement is happening here through the hip and not through my back. So keep in mind chest is nice and upright and we are leaning forward ever so slightly. Because this is the first stretch for today, you might find that you're a little cooler, your body's a little stiff, so just take it slow here. There is no rush. Okay, as you find yourself start to loosen up a bit, you can lower down just a bit more. We're going to spend just a couple seconds here, so find what feels comfortable for you. Keeping in mind that back stays fairly flat here. We don't want it to be rounding out. If you can go a little bit lower, then do so. You might start to feel that as you get lower, depending on what your flexibility is like, you feel it a little bit in your lower back. It should feel like a good stretch. It shouldn't feel painful. So if anytime you're feeling something that's like, whoa, this isn't good, take it back a notch. Okay. Now before we switch sides, I want you to just come up. You're going to bring one arm overhead, and instead of reaching forward, we are now going to reach over. Should feel this now a little bit more in your side, a little bit more in your back than your leg. Focus on your breathing here. Just a few more seconds and then we're going to switch sides. This opposite hand can really be wherever is most comfortable to you. Good, bring it up nice and gentle. You might feel a little bit of a release there in your back, and then we're going to switch sides. Other leg comes out, tucking through the leg, nice and square. We are going to square our hips out to that extended leg, starting with the front facing. So taking it nice and slowly. I know for myself, I have tweaked this hamstring recently, so I'm going to take it nice and easy here. I'm going to listen to my body as to what it's telling me. I'm going to make sure I don't go too far. Feel free to use the same discretion with yourself. Back nice and flat, focusing on pressing that chest out. Lean a little bit forward as you feel a bit of a release. Does one side feel different than the other? Try and check in. Good, bring it back nice and slowly. We are now doing that second variation. So instead of facing the leg, we are now coming over it. So arm is nice and tall, reaching back, or reaching over, I should say. Again, too, we can focus not so much on collapsing, but chest nice and open with that arm. And the other one can go wherever feels most comfortable. You can even, if you do have the flexibility, use that elbow to support a bit better. Good, take a few more seconds here. And release nice and slow, bring it back up. We are now going to move towards a hip flexor stretch with a bit of a knee high. So we're gonna come to our knees. Now nice and slow, you might feel a bit of a release there. You can always shake it out a bit. Hopefully that was a good one to start with for you. We're gonna bring one leg up a little bit further than 90 degrees. So we're going a little bit, reaching a little bit further with that toe. We're gonna have the hand down to help support. We're gonna lift the back leg. Okay, so just leaning into this stretch here. Now, this hand can be either on the knee to support a bit, or you can tuck it on the inside of the leg. With the back leg straight, you should feel a nice stretch across the hip flexor, maybe into the hamstring, but we're just going to take a few moments here. Now, if this is feeling like a good stretch, you can leave it like this, or you can alternate a bit between lowering that leg. You might feel a bit more of a stretch there. Coming back to standing, getting just a bit more movement through that hip. Whatever variation you pick, we're just going to hang out here for a little bit longer. Good, and then we're gonna switch sides. So you can choose to drop the knee, bring the leg back. We are now switching sides. So that opposite leg is gonna come nice and long, as far as we can go, leaning into it a bit, bringing the legs, or the arms down, sorry, bringing that back leg up. Again, should feel a nice stretch through that front of that leg into the hip and the opposite hamstring. Now you might even want to play around with knee movement a bit. You can't quite see it on this side, but if you want to push that knee out a bit more, by all means, you can do so. Or we can play around with dropping that knee for a couple seconds, lifting it back up. Take your time here. Keeping in mind, we're not dropping the head, trying to stay nice and neutral. Good. Now bring that leg back nice and slow. We're gonna come back to a seated position. We're cruising on through here. Legs are gonna come out nice and straight. Okay, try and think about scooching your bum under so you really feel your sit bones on the ground. Legs are gonna be straight. This is going to be a pike stretch. We're gonna take it nice and slow. Given this is only video 2, you might feel quite stiff. So we're not gonna push it. We're just gonna go nice and slow. From a nice upright position, we're standing or sitting nice and upright. Legs are straight. We're just gonna crawl the fingers down ever so slightly. Just until you feel a nice stretch through the hamstrings, through the calves, back staying nice and flat. If you have the flexibility to go further, by all means, but I really want you to focus here not just on getting as far as you can, but getting a real quality stretch. And again, as we take time, you may find that your body lets you go a little further, but just keeping in mind we're trying not to sag into the back, which puts additional pressure on our back, but really trying to get the hip movement happening. That's where our mobility is coming from in this movement. We will have variations of this as we go, but today's just nice and simple. once that feels like it was a pretty good stretch, we're gonna come back to seated, shake it out just a little bit, and then we're gonna switch into our last two stretches for the day. The first one being a downward dog. So we are going to come to a front-facing position. Hands are gonna be in line with shoulders, so wrists in line with shoulders. From the toes, lifting up through the hips into that downward dog position. Hips come back, legs are fairly straight here. You can play around with pedaling the legs, you get a little bit more of a stretch on the calves. Whatever feels good for you here. Focusing on our breath here, this should feel like a nice stretch across the back of the legs. Just a few more moments here. And drop it down to the knees. We've got one last stretch here. Now, I didn't mention it at the beginning, but you will need some kind of ledge or something that you can just elevate your foot slightly on. So it could be a stool, it could be a couch, could be a ball. Get creative here. I figure everyone in their home probably has something. I just see this ball, so this is what I'm going to use for today. So we are going to do an inner thigh stretch. Now, what you're gonna do is come side by side the ledge that you have. You're gonna bring one leg up onto that ledge, both toes facing forward. At that point, you're then going to pivot at the hips, leaning forward. You should feel as you bend a bit of a stretch through the groin there. So you might need to widen it up a little bit. Whatever you decide, just make sure it is high enough that you feel a stretch there. Mine could probably be a touch higher, but I still am feeling that stretch. Back nice and flat here. If you're finding that you're trying to sag, put something here as well that keeps your back flat. Good, lean into that a little bit if you need to. We're gonna go ahead and switch sides. So either you're just turning around to do the other side, or you're moving your ledge. Feet are facing forward, lifting through the leg. Find that sweet spot, leaning forward. Should feel it through the inside of that leg. Back nice and flat, core tight. Remember, if you're feeling your back is fatigued, you can put something there just to rest on. Whether it be a couple pillows, a couple textbooks. Couple more seconds here. Good, bring it up. Set your ledge aside. Shake it out. Great job today. How are you feeling? Check in with yourself. Was this helpful? What felt really tight and maybe could use a bit more attention? Thank you so much for joining me today. Let me know. I want to know how this one felt. I'll see you next time.